We're here with America's governor, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. It's always a pleasure to have you, Governor. I understand you're making a really remarkable proposal on property taxes. I mean, you don't have a state income tax in Florida. What are you thinking about when it comes to property taxes in Florida?
Well, Mark, my view is do we have private property or not? And I think we run into this issue on property taxes where people buy land, they have a home, they own it free and clear, and yet they got to continue to pay tax to the government just for the privilege of being able to live in their own home. And it's like, okay, do you actually own that, or are you just leasing it from the government? I mean, if I go buy a big screen TV at Best Buy, I pay sales tax on it, then I put it on the wall, I use it. I don't have any relationship with the government about that. Same thing if I buy, a car, I pay taxes and then you move on. And so we have a problem here where people are being taxed to smithereens on property. Now in Florida, this is not the state taxing this. This is all local governments. The way our Constitution's structured, the millage and all that is done locally. We can't change it through normal legislation, so that's why we're working to put an amendment on the ballot to be able to protect taxpayers against this. But what's happened in Florida, and you know this, Mark, because you've got property down here, you've had huge increase in property values over the last 5 or 6 years. Part of that, we're the free state. There's demand to come here, all that stuff, which is great. However, you've got people that bought a home for $200,000 30 years ago. Now they're being told it's worth $1.2 million, and then they have to pay taxes on that, and so they can't afford it. So we want to make sure that we're standing with the taxpayers. These local government budgets have ballooned, even though some of them haven't even increased population, and their budgets are ballooning. So this is wrong, and so we're working on providing something on the ballot in 26 that'll provide constitutional limitations on what local government can do in terms of taxing. And my view is private property is either private property or it's not. If you always have to pay government for the courtesy of using your property, then you truly don't own it free and clear.
Well, this is great. Are you thinking about capping it at some level?
Well, I think our default is it's inappropriate to tax people's property, especially if it's a primary residence. But we're going to have to work through the numbers. Clearly, you're going to have major relief at worst. But I think we should swing for the fences, and I think we should say, especially as a state like Florida, like some people, like the liberal groups, are upset at me. They're like, oh, the state's going to have to do this tax. No, we're not doing any taxes at the state level. We have no income tax. We do have a sales tax. We are not raising that at all. We're staying the same. We've got a budget surplus. We've paid down debt. Now, local governments, I think, would need to pare back their budgets, which is a good thing, and that's a healthy thing. But if they do want revenue, we're in a situation in Florida, you could have non-citizens pay revenue. The tourists, we had 142 million people visit Florida. We have people that are non-residents of Florida that own property, that have business. So there's ways, if they really needed to do that, they could do it without taxing Floridians on their homestead. So we're going to have something really strong. We got to work with the legislature to get it on the ballot, and then we're going to need something that can get 60% of Floridians to do it. But if we're able to do that, we will be, by far, the most taxpayer-friendly state in America. We're already one of the top, but this will really be a grand slam.
It will. And I'll give you an example. I mean, obviously, people like me can afford whatever, but we don't like it. I've had a lot of people move into my community, very, very wealthy people, many from California, New York, and they buy these lots, and they knock down these houses, and they build these 10,000 square foot mansions. And so the local tax collector, they assess it at that value with those homes. My taxes, property taxes in Florida, have doubled in 4 years. Doubled. And so I'm thinking, and I say this to Julie, my wife, all the time, how do people who are on fixed incomes, they're retired, or people who are on minimum wage, or just hardworking people, how do they even keep their homes? How do they afford it? And the local government, I won't embarrass them because I don't want to drag you into my world, run by Republicans, mostly rhinos. They just keep giving these teachers' unions everything they want because they know it's easier. We'll just tax the taxpayer. They're not going to resist. What are they going to do? How are they going to stop us? And we got to face these teachers' unions day in and day out. And so what do? They cave. And the property taxes keep going up and up and up, and they're massive, to be perfectly honest with you. That's what you're concerned about.
And what they will tell you, and this is true in most Florida counties, they'll say, we did not raise the millage rate. What are you talking about? We raised taxes. Yeah, it is true. Most of them have not raised the millage rate. But what they do is they assess these properties at twice the value over a 5-year period. So, of course, you're paying more. We have a homestead protection in Florida, but it's outdated. It's inadequate. It doesn't keep up with what's going on. So, yes, hardworking people, even with the homestead protection, are seeing their property taxes going up and up. And around the country, we've seen a trend where the property tax share and the insurance share are more than what they're paying for the actual heart of the mortgage, which that used to not be the case. It used to be the mortgage payment was the biggest. There was a percentage for insurance and property taxes. Now that's really changed, and so yes, so this has gotten out of control, and we want to provide relief. And Mark, when you have an inflationary environment, government is limited. I mean, like I can't control the price of groceries and the state government. The federal government can't even do that. But on taxes, government is 100% in control of that. Now, we need to go through the Constitution the way Florida's Constitution is structured, but I think there's going to be a lot of Floridians that are going to be eager to vote for relief.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, Governor, even here in Virginia, I go back and forth, as you know, but I'm a resident permanently of Florida, mostly in Florida. They just jacked up our property taxes here. I mean, these local governments must be spending like drunken Marxists. They can't control themselves. They just keep spending and spending and spending. It went up from, I won't tell you the amount, went up in 1 year, 30%. And I'm thinking, how do people put up with this? Because they don't, which is your point. Before we lose you, I want to get to this immigration issue. You got a bill through the Assembly before when they were blocking it. You guys worked it out. Tell us about that.
In Florida, because of what we did, 1, it's now a crime to enter Florida illegally. 2, we don't have catch and release, so illegal aliens accused of these, particularly the serious crimes, they're not getting bail in Florida, and we're going to make sure ICE is alerted and can pick them up. But then the most important thing is we imposed a legally enforceable duty on all local law enforcement agencies and state agencies, but I was going to order them to do that anyways, to participate and help ICE enforce immigration law. And so, yes, we're not a sanctuary state. We banned sanctuary cities my first year as governor, but and I'll hold people accountable if they ever tried to do that. But this is more. This is, you can't just sit on your hands. You got to be part of the solution. So we're now having our people at Highway Patrol, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, all 67 Florida sheriffs have signed agreements with ICE to participate in these enforcement task forces. They're going through training. They're going to be deputized to be able to exercise the authority of an ICE agent. So you are about to see some really good stuff in Florida. We've had a number of our guys go through the training. Now, all this training was dormant under Biden. It's interesting, Mark. I was in Tampa yesterday. I'm in like a Wawa. A guy comes up to me. He's like, I just want to thank you for what you're doing to help with the traffic. I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, since you got all the sheriffs and everyone on the immigration, on the illegals, he's like, the traffic is less and people aren't driving as crazy. Because some of these illegals, they think they own the place and they drive crazy. They don't have licenses, and it's a huge hazard. And now they're saying, because they know if they get pulled over, they're going to get referred to ICE. And so we're leading the way on this. But here's the thing, Mark. President Trump's done a great job in securing the border. We went from 160,000 crossings to about 8,000 his first month in office. Dramatic example of leadership. But what happens on the interior affects what happens at the border. If people know, even if they sneak across the border, we're going to enforce the law, they're going to end up getting deported, they are much less likely to try to even come across the border in the first place. So we got a lot of problems with the people that came here illegally already, but we also have to set the tone so that no one is going to try to come illegally, because it's just not going to work. Under Biden, if you just showed up to the border, you got a free pass to the interior of the country. We can't let that happen, and Florida is on the team. We're helping President Trump. This is a very important mission, and if we don't succeed in this mission now, with the president having the full head of steam, then this is just never going to get done. So I hope all states, certainly all the Republican states, they need to follow what Florida has done, pass similar legislation, and let's get those removal numbers up.
Now, you have a lot of coastline, obviously, in Florida. Talk about immigration and so forth. I've always wondered about this. Do you have a fairly significant presence? How can I put it, in the ocean? Do you have like a fleet of boats or something?
So, absolutely. So you remember when Haiti had the instability about a year ago, people were predicting tens of thousands of Haitians showing up on our shore fleeing, and I said, not on my watch. And so we surged marine assets to assist the Coast Guard. And the way it works is if you intercept them on the sea, you turn them over to the Coast Guard. Even under Biden, the Coast Guard would send them back to Haiti or Bahamas or Cuba or wherever. So in the last year and a half, we've interdicted almost 18,000 illegal aliens at sea. Just Florida turned over to the Coast Guard for repatriation. The Coast Guard has intercepted as much or more than that as well. So, yes, we've been in there. You never saw the massive influx of Haitians that they were predicting because we surged resources. Now with President Trump, he has more Coast Guard resources there. We also have very good radar technology for southern Florida. So if you're in the Bahamas and you're trying to come, like, we can see that a lot of times, and they're addicted. But, Mark, there'll be like 15, 16 illegals. And sometimes there's firearms, narcotics, a lot of stuff, and so it's important. But we've taken that very, very seriously, and we've been able to put up really good numbers. Now, the problem under Biden, if they got to the shore, he would resettle them in the interior of our country. Now, under President Trump, even if they get to the shore, we're going to be able to turn them around and deport them, I think, pretty quickly, which just increases the disincentive for them to go. But I think what we showed by having the interceptions, we didn't have as many boats even try it, because why would you want to go over shark-infested waters hundreds of miles knowing we're going to stop you and turn you back? And so once they figured out that it was hard to get in, the number of attempts did go down. But yeah, like where you are, people have shown up on the shore in southern Florida. They show up further south in the Keys, and you got to deal with it. But man, we've been able to repatriate, almost 18,000 just in the last year and a half.
In America, he's not kidding about those sharks. You walk out my backyard, you go out there, you better be careful about going in the ocean right back there. You better know what the hell you're doing. I'm not kidding. There are real sharks out there. And I don't mean liberals, Governor. I mean, sharks. Anyway, Governor, I want to thank you.
We don't have as many as those liberal sharks in Florida as we used to, because we've turned the state solid red, which we're proud of.
That's true. You did that. That's amazing. And we want to have you back more often. We love hearing about what you're doing. And my best to your wonderful wife and family. God bless you, Governor.
All right. God bless, Mark. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care of yourself.